Hey guys, Shane here, so welcome to part 7 of my Panther 126 build, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at creating the diorama base. So I've just taken a cheap picture frame here and I've glued in the back in place just to give us a firm foundation, and I'm just going to start taking some sheets of blue foam and insulation foam, and this is going to create the bases or the general height of our diorama base. So right now I'm just trying to dry fit things together just to get a sense of how everything's going to fit together. So just taking a look at the actual photograph we're basing this diorama on and taking our Panther model, we're going to start just dry fitting and test fitting various elements together. I'm just going to start drawing some lines, and the idea here is just to give me some visual references to how things are going to form up together. And once I'm happy with them, I'm just going to start joining up some lines, and these are going to form elements of the ditch and the road layout of our diorama. And then just taking a Stanley blade here or a box cutter, I'm just going to start cutting into the foam. Reality, I'm just going to cut the top layer of the thinner sheet of foam here, and this is going to give me the ground form for the road and the ditches. So once I'm happy with the basic forms, I'm just going to bevel some of the edges, basically any of the edges that are meant to be organic, and this is just going to help take some of the sharpness out, and it just will make it a little bit easier to create a natural form when we start adding our ground layers. So this is our basic layout complete now. So now we're going to start by gluing everything together. Now you can use different types of adhesive for this. Again, don't use CA glue on foam, it will melt it. So you could use wood glue or PVA, or in this case I'm using No More Nails, which is basically things like an epoxy based adhesive. So this is going to get a bit messy, but that's okay though. We can wipe away any excess with just a wet cloth, or just wipe away with our finger. And again, I just kind of push down firmly to ensure I get a nice even foundation. And then I'm just going to start building up our various layers of foam here. Again, just basically like building a cake. You will see this get messier and messier and messier as I go, because I'm a bit of a messy builder, but that's okay. I don't really mind that. If you're a bit more careful, I'm sure you can do way cleaner than I am. And the nice thing about using this type of adhesive is it's pretty slow setting. So just like if you're using wood glue or PVA, you can you have a bit of time just to move elements around and get them happy in their form and their placement. So I'm going to take some balsa wood here. So this is, I think, 2mm or 3mm balsa sheet, and this is going to be our edging for our diorama base. I've just taken a T-square and just made sure I've cut some right angles on the edges, and I'm just going to take our No More Nails here, and again just fit them in place. Just making sure everything lines up. Again, if it gets onto the wood or any of the adhesive gets in an area we don't want, we can just wipe it away with a wet cloth or just with our finger. As it is water soluble. And I'm just going to make sure everything lines up. So I've gone in and I've cut the basic shape of the ground layout into the balsa wood, as well as leaving about maybe 2 to 3 millimeters extra of balsa wood on the top just to give us some clearance for adding our ground form or our ground layer later on. You can see gaps in the foam compared to the balsa wood. That's not a problem, we'll fill that in later on. But right now we just have a really nice and simple layout. Okay, so to create the first layer of our groundwork, I'm just going to take some Das clay. And I tend to not really use Das that much, but I had it on hand. And a trick I find is to actually lay down some PVA glue onto the area that you're going to be applying your Das clay. I find it kind of helps it not shrink as much and tends to help a little bit with cracking as well. Now you will see once again this will get messy, but it's okay. All this is water soluble, it'll wash right out. You can see I'm not being too precious with it. I'm just working around the actual natural shapes and flow of the base that we've cut, and then just allowing the clay to kind of naturally sculpt the basic fall of the land. If you find that the clay is actually sticking to your fingers, if you just dip them into water, that'll kind of help break the surface tension so you won't be pulling the clay with you. And then once the clay was allowed to dry for 24 hours, I came in and primed it with just some black primer just to give it a base coat. And now I'm just going to take some basic domestic or interior design masking tape, the cheap stuff you buy in the hardware store. And I'm just going to remove some of the tackiness by running it around my fingers first, just so I don't pull any of the primer off when I remove this tape layer on. And I'm just going to clad the edges here so I just protect that nice finish that the primer is given to the balsa wood. And then just coming in with a fresh blade on my scalpel, I'm just going to trim down this masking tape to shape. So moving on to probably the only kind of feature on the road that the original photo was taken on is this kind of petrified tree. And this is just literally a twig or a branch I found a couple of months back, and I kind of put it aside when I found it. I've allowed it to dry out fully. You could put it into the oven on a slow temperature if you had to, just to dry it out. And all I'm going to do here, I'm just going to drill into the bottom of it, and I'm going to take a paper clip and I'm just going to glue that in place, and that's going to be our mounting pin, so we can experiment with the actual placement of our tree when we come around to adding it to the diorama base later on. So moving on to the caster of our diorama, and for this I have two sets, one from Alpine Miniatures and one from Redu Miniatures, and these are going to be our two main characters for our diorama. So these went together straight out of the box, just give them a quick little bath in warm water. Often with the nicer makes you don't even have to do that, but I would recommend that you always just give resin a wash anyway. And the only thing I've added is to our surrendering tanker, and that is an empty pistol holster, which is from spares from my Dragon Gen 2 sets. The set does come with a sidearm, but it looks like it's a closed holster, whereas this I want to give the impression that this young tanker here is being disarmed by this US armoured infantryman here. So now I'm going to start working on the composition just a little bit more. So I'm going to come back and mount our Panther here. And we're going to start placing the various elements together just to ensure that they line up to the photograph and that they work before we start making permanent alterations. So just take my pin files here. I'm just going to drill a guide hole for our tree. Again, you can drill up as much times as you want because there's another ground layer to go on top of this anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But this just allows me to just visualize where the tree is going to go and make sure that it matches the photograph. And once I'm happy, then I'm going to do the same here. Just again, just drill some pilot holes for our figures. and just work on the composition. I wanted to make sure that the figures kind of made sense, because the actual photograph is clearly a staged photo after the battle. However, it's very striking, and I'm going to kind of want to emulate that. So I want to make sure that it kind of makes sense, and I want to make it look like the US infantryman is basically sending him on his way to, you know, the battalion POW cage or whatever. But I'm pretty happy with it. I think it works pretty well. One or two things I might have to change is just the angle of Panther 126 itself. I had to make sure that it sits at a slightly steeper angle to make it look like it slid into the ditch a bit more. But that's something that can be added later on. So guys, I really hope you enjoyed this. This is pretty basic, just intro to how I start building basic diorama bases. And in the next episode, we're going to start working on the groundwork. And I'm quite looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun. So guys, I hope you join me then. I've been Shane. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye bye.